Welcome to the Oshow. It's time for our politics panel. And as we're about to start summer, there are issues in our city that are only heating up. First, let's jump into the hottest topic that there is, because not only is Hamilton Council holding these town halls to talk about what people want to do with encampments, but we just heard yesterday that the city of Barrie has decided to prevent other residents from supporting anyone they see panhandling or needing of shelter. So you can't give food, money, or anything to people who are homeless in Barrie. It's an extreme, ridiculous position, but I think is an alarm bell that we need to pay attention to. What are we going to do right now with the people who are suffering in our community? So maybe let me start with you, Graham, because you put out an op-ed suggesting that council had a solution right in front of their faces. Sir John A. Macdonald, well-positioned, available. Why aren't we at least temporarily using that? So can you tell me what your argument was there and what you're seeing in this discussion? Is it getting worse? Is it devolving, or are we moving forward?
No, I don't think we're doing anything with this discussion. I think what's happened is, as I said in my op-ed, I think we're allowing old rules to get in the way. I mean, it's obvious that the city of Hamilton doesn't own the school board does. The school board has already said they want to sell it. That's fine. My proposal is, at least as a partial contribution to addressing the houselessness issues we have, is to basically commandeer the school for 3 to 5 years and then give it back to the board. I'm not suggesting we take it from the board. We just work in partnership with the board, with the Ministry of Education, and with the Premier through the Mayor's office. Is let's agree that we need to do something during this emergency. And what is currently happening is they're talking about this City of Hamilton School Board Liaison Committee, which is going to be a complete waste of time. The board's already declared what it wants to do with the property. And so we're going to do nothing. And it hasn't met, by the way. It should have met months ago. It still hasn't had a single meeting. So it doesn't look good. So my call to action is basically focused on the mayor's office. If your relationship with Doug Ford is as hot as you said it was during the campaign, and as the Duggar said during the campaign, then call each other. Drive down and see him. You know where his office is. You spent 20 years there. And work out a deal. Make something happen.
Well, I like the idea of doing something, actual action from this mayor, because last week on the O Show, we had someone from the Better Tent City in Kitchener talking about their temporary solution, and they've made some progress and saved some lives with compassion and common sense. It's not the ultimate solution, tiny shelters, but it's working better for them than us doing nothing here. And so that action of talking to the province and saying, what can we do with this school? What can we do? It's a crisis. I keep going back to in my mind, guys, that if there had been a flood, like if a dam had been broken and people were suffering in a flood, we would put them in Sir John A. We would put them somewhere. We would care. We would allow people to help them. Instead, when it comes to people who are homeless, there's such judgment that we're saying, no, they made that their circumstances, they can figure it out, or some bizarre thing. But then, Margaret, we have and the BIA's coming out today saying that the businesses, they can't get people to occupy the buildings downtown because of what happens when they come out the front door. There's no customer traffic because of the homeless crisis and the opioid crisis and the mental health crisis in our community. So not doing anything isn't working. And Margaret, you wrote an op-ed saying, consultation's great, but you've got experts that already know what to do. Why are we going back and asking people what they feel about homelessness and encampments? Can you tell us more about your argument?
Well, we all know that we don't want the encampments. I think anybody who wants an encampment, well, I don't know what to say about them because that's not really dealing in reality. We want people to have homes, right? Nobody wants encampments, but there are no homes. So where are they going to go? I mean, it becomes an issue of plain logic. There are no homes to put people. This is where they are already. They're already in the park by my house.
Well, in your op-ed, though, you made a very powerful point where you said, why ask us how we feel about encampments? Obviously, nobody wants them.
Why are you asking us? You don't want them. We don't want them. We don't have the answer for them. If we had the answer for them, the answer would have appeared 10 years ago when I first wrote about this. 15 years ago, it's been going on. This isn't something new. It's gotten to this point because it's been escalated because of the housing crisis and the challenges with ODSP and NOW. But this has been around for a long time. Consultation happened at the doors when our candidates were canvassing for their jobs. They should know what the people feel.
Emil, who of course is part of our panel last year, tweeted out that it's an atrocity, those were his words, to bring people together to, essentially rant and even breed hatred when there are experts who know what's needed and how it's needed and when it's needed and what to do. So did you see last night as an atrocity? Because I know you tweeted out how good it was to see the amount of engagement. So what happened?
Yes, so I'm going to say some things that might get me into trouble, but let's see how it goes. Yes, I think it's important to have people show up. I mean, there were close to over 500 people there. That's fine. I will never disparage people coming out to a public consultation. However, I want to set the scene here. They gave us a green card to lift up when we agree, a red card to lift up when we disagree. And this is what Emil is speaking to. And it shook my core when I saw this. Michelle Bird, who works with the housing department, said housing is a human right. And there were majority of red cards that were up. The whole room, I can tell you, I would say 95% of people had their red cards up when Michelle Bird said housing is a human right. And that's when I knew that we're doomed, right? Because if we know that, and I think the councillors knew this is why the public consultation is happening. They want to substantiate some of their ideas of saying that encampment shouldn't happen. And I've always taken the position, it's not about whether encampment should happen or not. It's about, are you engaging in solutions that is going to get us to housing people? That is the solution. There is no other solution. You house people and you provide them with support. But this council and the council before and the previous councils don't invest in housing. And one of the things that happened too is yesterday, everybody agreed that it is a provincial matter and the province should also provide funding. But then some of the councillors that are in the room there also have ties to the provincial government. So the question becomes, you get a group of people together, but then you are not advocating through your connections to the provincial government to provide the funding, but yet you're okay bringing people together and festering the frustration. Because that was what was happening at the meeting. Everybody was frustrated and they were saying things that I bet you they wouldn't want to say if they were in that position, right? Like people were saying, well, seniors don't have a choice in terms of which nursing home they go to. So why should houseless folks have a choice? And it's like, yo, I want seniors to have a choice to where they go. Just because our provincial government has mandated these things on us doesn't mean that it's right, and doesn't mean that so that's what we should accept. We should be fighting for a better world. That's the key here, and providing housing is doing that. But to be frank, I think and I think Councillor John Paul Danko said this on the radio today, and I can tell you that's what most of the councillors are doing. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, this discussion was excellent and is going to guide how I make my decision or how I intend to decide what I say. So that's what happened. Everybody's going to say, well, we heard from 500 people and all of them said they don't want encampments. duh. But everybody is saying you should provide housing. There were 3 people that mentioned Sir John A. MacDonald. But tell me what any of those councillors have done.
I feel your frustration, and seeing those red cards, I get the chills just thinking about that. Let me go to you, Robert, because you were invoked in Kojo's comments. Previous councils, you were on one of them, have not been supporting housing, have not been investing in housing. Let this huge backup in Hamilton housing happen. It's been 8,000 plus for as long as I can remember. Do you take ownership as a former councillor on not taking this issue seriously enough? And what is it that you think council should be doing now? Because it kind of feels like they're using these public engagement things as just a cover so they can come back and say, no, forget encampments. Nobody wants them, which Kojo says, duh, of course not. But what are they going to do differently? So Robert, to you.
Well, thank you, Laura. And I guess, yes, it was an issue back when I was on council, and that was ended from 2006 to 18. It had been escalating. And as far as public housing, and that I believe Councillor Collins was chair of the public housing there at that time. And it did get bantered back and forth. There's no doubt about it. And it has escalated to the point where we're at now. And maybe if back in that time, if we had, as a group of councillors and the mayor, took more ownership of it, it may have not gotten to this point and escalated. Not saying that we could have done anything. It's as we all know, council doesn't agree all the time, okay? And you always got somebody that wants to send it back for review, send it back for a consultant's review. And that happens time and time again. And I believe that's what, looking back and thinking about it now, you're testing my mind. But I believe that's some of the comments that came back from our council meetings and meetings that we had outside of council chambers, if you get together and talk about it. So, yeah, I would say I was there. And could I have done something? Maybe spoke more about it again, but would it have made a difference as a group of councillors? I don't think so. To be honest with you, I don't think so.
So what's so painful is that the very guy who was the head of Hamilton Housing all those years and had all that power and had that big wait list is now sitting as a backbencher in the government in Ottawa. And so we have people who know the housing situations, who have connections federally and provincially. And our mayor, I'm sorry, but the biggest public meeting in Hamilton on the biggest single issue, and you send your staff when she's been MIA, and Margaret corrected me. She did do one interview finally on this and said, we should do something immediately. I wanted the encampment protocol. Now we got to wait till August. Immediacy after 9 months of sitting around doing and saying nothing doesn't impress me, but she should have been there last night. Why wasn't our mayor there? I mean, Robert, I'm going to just go back to you on this. You know how council works and you talk to its limitations, but what is the opportunity? Because I always thought that a mayor with a microphone was a powerful thing in this town.
Well, it's true, Laura, and I'm astounded the amount of people there. First of all, as I heard in the radio this morning, one said 200, another newscast said 500. As Kojo said, it was close to 500 or more there. That's astounding. I mean, that's an issue that the mayor should have been there. Councillors should have been there, more than one or two, whoever was there, and they should have been there and listening to this. It does trouble me, though, that housing, to me, housing is a right. People need housing. They're here on this earth and they need a place to stay. And to hold up 90%, as Kojo said, red cards, to know that is not right. That needs to be corrected in some way, somehow. Reaching out to the public and asking, instead of, and consultants, come on, council, at this day and age, get a grip on this and make a decision as where we go. And if I can at this point, Graham's comment on the Sir John A. Macdonald School, I thought about that months ago. That'd be a great place. It's sitting down there. When I read Graham's comments in the paper, I thought, wow, he's right on. He's right on there.
Okay.
Can I say, yeah. So there were a number of councillors there. Councillor Tammy Wan, Ted McMeekin, Brad Clark, Tom Jackson, Esther Pauls, Mike Swadafora, John Paul Danko. They were all there, which is great. Like, it's great. Some other staff from other councillors in the mayor's office were there. But again, just hearing the tone, it's like none of these councillors have even regular town halls, right? There were people that were in Ward 7 that were like, I didn't even know that the thing was happening, right? So it's also speaking to a lack of connection between what happens at council in terms of what's going on in the actual city versus how it impacts residents. These councillors don't hold regular meetings. They don't tell the public what's going on. They don't inform the public what the key issues are. So then when a lightning rod issue like this happens, then they rush and say, yes, we want to listen to you, because they know that most of the residents are frustrated, and that's what's going to inform their decision. Whereas some of them have been there for 5 years, 8 years, 20 years, 30 years. You're telling me that you don't want to take accountability for that? And we can't take you seriously as a leader. We just can't.
No, we can't. In fact, I found out if I ever want to see my counselor, what bar everyone drinks at on Thursday nights. I stumbled across it literally last Thursday and had some fascinating conversations, which I may or may not allude to during this show. But they are out there, but are they leading? Because Kojo, you tell me, did Tom Jackson or did the mayor or did anybody else stand up at that and say, here's the situation, Hamilton, here's how we've been working on it. As your elected mayor, I have this as my top priority. We need to get Hamiltonians housed because of what it's doing to them personally, what it's doing to our downtown, our revitalization, our image as a community, the safety for you and your families. Priority is to get them into some sort of safe shelter. Do we start with encampments, move to tiny houses, and then on to, renovating our existing housing stock? I mean, did anybody stand up there and say, this is what you hired me for, this is what I believe in strongly, housing is a human right. No need to ask the crowd if you agree with that, because you elected me as your mayor, and those are my values. I mean, did anybody lead? Did anybody set the tone of the meeting? Or was it like The Simpsons, where everybody just showed up with torches and weren't sure what they were yelling about?
So the meeting wasn't set up that way. So the meeting was set up primarily as a listening engagement for the councillors and whoever showed up. So they went.
It was literally an event session. It was saying to a bunch of people who are frustrated and scared, like all of us are by what we're seeing, and heartbroken, basically saying, you know what, we wash our hands as a council, we can't figure this out, and we don't want to take any risks and lose any votes. So we're just going to have you all come together without giving you any guidance and any leadership, and just let you event, and just let you get together as a mob think, put up cards saying that people don't deserve housing as a human right. I mean, where is the leadership in that room? It's a complete joke. And worse than that, I think it's damaging. I'm not sure I'm all the way to atrocity like our friend Emil, but the more I listen to it, Kojo, the more I'm feeling it was an atrocious betrayal of the people in Hamilton who need help, just to bring out a bunch of angry neighbors and to stand back as powerful politicians and say, yeah, no, we got nothing. But now that we've heard you're angry, thanks. You've given us what we need to go in and bully these people in these encampments.
Yeah, well, for everyone watching, there's another one next Tuesday, June 27th at City Hall. So you can show up to that one and also voice your concerns.
Yeah, may I step in for a second, Laura? Just, you made reference to the Spectator article where Mayor Horwath came out swinging against her council colleagues. In my opinion, if I was a councillor and I read that story, I would have been furious, because it was a complete fabrication. It was utter bullshit. I watched that council meeting when the protocol was voted on. Andrea spins this in front of the spec reporter as, I was pushing hard for action, but my council colleagues pushed back and said, oh no, we'd like to defer. That is a lie. What actually happened was the councillors who said they did not want to vote for it were very concerned that what was going to happen if that new protocol had been voted through and supported. Every encampment that exists in this city right now would have been moved, because there were regulations about it had to be 5 meters from a fence, 5 meters from this, all kinds of things, and it couldn't be more than X. And so every single encampment would have been touched by the police. If that protocol had been approved, this was talked about very clearly. This was supposed to be housing as a human right, but also to take a human rights approach to the protocol. Staff did not do that. Staff failed. and the mayor agreed with staff. That's what actually happened. This bullshit that Andrea Horwath is take no prisoners, I'm all about action, is nonsense. In my view, it's a complete fabrication. The spec should be ashamed of itself, even though I am a fan. I do post or present op-eds, and I'm a subscriber. But this was sloppy journalism, in my view, because that isn't what actually happened. And she's spinning herself like she's some, get out of the way because Andrea's here and we're gonna start making stuff happen. Bullshit.
Well, one of us wrote an op-ed that also got some traction called "Where's Our Mayor?" on homelessness, and she wasn't taking interviews with the Spectator, and now she is, and she's going to solve it. Fine, great. I'm glad that she thinks that now she's in the game. But where the hell was she when 500 citizens last night could have used her extensive experience at a podium in front of 500 people, could have used her progressive values? I'm starting to wonder if she's a Pinot, a progressive in name only. Do you think she should have been there last night no matter what, or at least set the tone for this conversation by doing some media before the town halls?
That's what I'd like to see now, given particularly about what Kojo say with the human right and the red card. And I saw some of those red card pictures. We've got a real problem in our people not being able to extend themselves humanely to our neighbors who need our help. Mayor Horwath, in my estimation, over what I've watched her in her career, has always championed the underdog and the vulnerable and given us this myth of somebody who I'm not going to say that it's a myth of somebody who cares, because I do believe that she cares. I mean, how can you not care? But we need to grab that piece about how we've all become so disconnected with our neighbors and our community. And that's where I'd like to see Mayor Horwath step in and address this really big picture that we've got about where is the love? Because I'm not seeing it. That is the thing that troubles me the most about this conversation, is the overwhelming number of people who are willing to attend these events and publicly say, as Kojo mentioned, things that they might in a more calm and retrospective way not say or even consider, because they're being wrapped up and caught up in this festering frustration. That's a fantastic concept. This festering frustration that we're feeling about the inadequacies of the provincial government to address this problem adequately, and the federal government in their limited capacity to do it, but particularly in the provincial government. So,
but we're not seeing, so I ran into somebody.
That's where I want to see it go, right?
Okay, go ahead.
I want her to come up, and I don't want to bang on about stuff in the past and what she hasn't done, and she hasn't been there. I want her to take this issue that we've got about why aren't we caring about one another and addressing them to all of us. Like, I'd love to hear an aspirational, moving speech by Mayor Horwath in front of the cameras about what is wrong with us, that we can't find it within our hearts to take care of these people, and not wait for everybody else to say it and her just go, well, nobody really wants to do it. Do you get what I'm saying?
Go ahead.
It ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen.
Well, that's what I want to see. That's what I want to see.
But Margaret, when you say you don't want to talk about what she hasn't been doing, like,
because it hasn't happened, because there's nothing happened.
But here's the point. How can I have faith that she'll do anything that's needed when she hasn't done anything so far? To Graham's point, I would have loved last night if she took the opportunity. I have in PR run meetings that larger on things that are even hotter than this. And I can tell you the tone you set has a huge impact on how things come out. And
absolutely.
As a leader, should have been there, instead of letting all these frustrated, festering grievances just boil up to the point where a majority are saying that these people don't even deserve the human right of housing. No, that's where you stand up as a leader and you say, hold on a second.
Exactly.
Talk about those red cards. Let's talk about 90% of you saying that other Hamiltonians don't deserve housing as a human right. Why are you saying that? Is it because you don't want to pay for their housing because you're already tapped because of your own taxes and because of inflation? Is it because you don't think that they've earned housing because you earned yours? Like, help me understand that so that we can, as a city, move forward with common sense and compassion, like Kitchener-Waterloo has done. You don't just let people say that people don't deserve human rights and then walk out and say, what a great engagement. I can't wait to vote on council.
You don't let people gather together in a room about a really hot topic without any kind of guidance around how to think about that topic. So throwing out and saying, well, housing is a human right. Well, why is it? How did we get there? How do we know that? So that somebody who says, yeah, housing is a human right will actually say, well, yeah, maybe it is. You want to change people's minds, not just listen to them vent about their unhappiness.
Well, let me go to you on this, Robert, because councillors are not elected just as placeholders to sit around a horseshoe and pass motions. They're elected based on their character. They're elected based on their values and their family and maybe their history. So, I mean, why are these councillors standing there up against the wall? I was watching the photos, having constituents say some of the stuff they said without ever saying, you know, may I have a point of privilege as an elected official and just tell you a little bit of my thoughts on this. I'm hearing what you're saying. My concerns are these. You know, this is hurting everyone in our community, and I feel the fear and the anger and the frustration. I haven't done enough in 35 years to address this and get ahead of this problem. I take accountability. Now, let's talk about how we can work together. I mean, where is even the attempt at that kind of compassionate leadership? To you, Robert, and then to you, Kojo, because I imagine this is driving you nuts.
Well, Laura, I think maybe what it really is they're afraid to say something that's going to get into the media that's going to harm their image. That's what I'm thinking. On the other hand, that shouldn't matter. They're elected there to make decisions, to do the right thing, to help people, to help the city move forward. And helping these people is also going to help the city move forward. But I still think from my time there, they were afraid to say certain things that was going to harm them in the media, in the public, possibly, but although it's too soon now for the next election, okay? Because this is one damn hot topic that needs to be addressed, and needs to be addressed from their minds and from their hearts. But they got to put their hearts into this, and they're not doing that. And will that happen? I don't think so. Did last night's meeting make a difference to the councillors who were there? And thank you, Kojo, for naming who was all there, which is virtually a lot of the councillors, the whole council. Will it make a difference from last night? I don't think so, because it sounds like the meeting, as Kojo said, wasn't structured properly. And maybe if it was, maybe the councillors would have said something. If the mayor was there and would have led off, then the councillors would have said something, and it would have brought the whole group together. Instead, I believe what we had is more of divide last night, what I'm hearing, than bringing them together. So there you have it.
I'm even more scared. I'm more scared, Kojo, that maybe this empowers councillors like Danko, who put out that very harsh tweet that got rebuke across this country, to say, well, hey, it's not just me. Everybody else feels the same way.
Yeah. So on the radio this morning, he said clear expectations of using public space. That was what he said, right? So again, it's very hard to listen to this, because if I were an elected official, I think one of the things that will keep me awake at night is knowing that we have an encampment issue and we're not doing any and everything that we can to solve it, right? So to me, that's the lack of political leadership that we are seeing, right? You would rather have a houseless registry, which you know is not a solution, and you vote on it, but then you won't go and ask for money from the provincial government. You won't lease your public buildings at $1 to Mission Services, Good Shepherd. I mean, the list goes on. Ham Smart, Keeping Six, the legal clinic. You won't get them together and say, how can we address this in an immediate way? Some people talked about, are you working with Indwell? Are you working with housing providers, right? Like, those are the things that we want to see, right? That will alleviate this issue. Then we can say, look, oh, our council is really coming up with innovative solutions. Oh, look, this is an issue, but they've taken 1 or 2 or 3 steps that can get us to where we want to be. I think it was on CHCH. One fellow said, look, in Kitchener-Waterloo, everything is moving forward. In Hamilton, nothing always moves forward. We are always behind. And that's also part of the frustration. It's that nobody's moving forward. We can't move forward on transit. We can't move forward on housing. We can't move forward on encampment. We can't move forward on urban and rural divide. We can't move forward on anything. And so there's so much frustration and a lack of political leadership.
Well, and Laura, if I may be permitted, I think Kojo is absolutely right. One of the things that, of course, is absent is what are the priorities? They're not stated. There's been a meeting took place over almost two months ago, 7 weeks ago. We've heard nothing since then. And from that meeting, it was a priority setting meeting. The mayor was there. She said nothing about it since then, other than, oh, it was really nice that, we met. And since then, she's done, 30 or 40 tweets about, cutting ribbons and having her picture taken. But we can't even talk about priorities because we don't have any, although just wait, they're coming. They're upon us right now. This is exactly, though, the kind of issue we're facing. It's this slow approach to the important stuff and a very active approach to the nonsense stuff, like photo ops, which appear every day. There's a tweet every day with Andrea, or 2 every day.
You know what? If she wants to be a Bob Morrow style mayor back in the day, shaking hands and kissing babies, we are facing a crisis where people are dying on our streets, where businesses, BIAs are saying today that they desperately need help. They are losing their occupancy rate downtown. People are losing foot traffic. The streets are becoming less safe. Transit's becoming less safe. People are afraid in their neighborhoods. This is a city in crisis. It's not the only city in crisis, but it's in crisis. Houston, they actually got their homeless people, a huge percentage of them, into actual safe housing. How? By deciding a number of years ago, this is the priority, all hands on deck. They did 3 specific things they agreed on, and that set them in motion to solve the problem. And I sent that article to council, and I have had people on the Oshow talking about how Kitchener-Waterloo did tiny shelters, and that's taken a bit of the burden off of the city. This council has access to information, and you know what they do? They argue with me and with, I'm sure, all of you privately on DMs. This little issue and this little issue, and this is why this isn't perfect, and this isn't perfect, and we can't do that, and you're being too harsh, you're being too mean. Shut up! Do something for the people who are dying on our streets. I'm so sick of it. If I had been there last night, I would have stormed the fucking microphone. I'm sorry. What are they doing? They are sitting back and waiting for staff to keep coming back with half-baked reports that don't even follow through on their own motions. It's so painful. It's a lack of leadership and a lack of courage. Sorry.
Well, poor judgment. I just want to make a comment about, you referenced the 2 BIA directors who came and spoke before council, which I watched, and they said they feel unsafe. The place is downtown looks messy, it's dirty, there's graffiti, the garbage everywhere, and that their members and their owners don't feel safe. And what some councillors focused on, and I'm sure are thinking, is, well, that's why we need to give the police more money. What this says to me is the police have utterly failed. They can't even keep our downtown safe enough for business owners to feel safe. Public Works failed. They can't keep our downtown clean enough. Those are the 2 largest budgets for the city of Hamilton, and both were pointed to by the BIA. But instead, what happens is we spin this as it's the problem with the homeless. They're causing it, and yet the services that we already pay huge amount, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars for every year, we let them off scot-free and say, we just need to give them more money, because clearly they can't do the job they're supposed to do with the 200 million the police get, or the 200 million Public Works get. Anyway, it really frustrated me to hear this discussion as if This proves the point that the police need an increase in budget. They failed us and they continue to fail us. How could downtown be a surprise area to them? Their headquarters is literally across down the street.
Margaret?
I wanted to just back up a little bit about the public works piece and how they failed downtown. And I don't think that when they came up with their budgets and they decided how much it was going to cost to keep downtown clean, they counted on having to clean up human feces from corners and hidden, and the garbage and the mess and the absolute. I mean, I go downtown on a regular basis. I walk down there, I walk through it, and I keep to myself. And that's not me. I don't keep to myself anywhere, but I keep to myself downtown. And I want to go back to something that Rob said earlier about how they're speaking, how our counselors are speaking, and how they're coming to these items with a view to re-election. Okay, this is, if I have one thing to say today that I want them to hear if they're listening, is your decisions that you make today are made for today, not for whether you're going to be reelected in the future. Give that up, because if you don't do anything, you won't be reelected. That's for sure. And we don't want you to couch your words and your terms because you think you're going to offend somebody and they're not going to vote for you. We want you to do the right thing. And that means offending some people that donated to you, some people that voted to you, some people who are your friends. But to do the right thing, it's going to cost you. It might cost you your job next time round. But if you do the right thing today, you will do the right thing and save people's lives.
And those same funders, and I want to just touch on those other two topics because I think these are all intermeshed, right? Those funders who are funding these campaigns and overfunding, as we've heard with the developers, they may be mad at you for taking a bold step. But in my experience talking to them, what they respect is leadership and getting things done. Like I've met a lot of them over the years, and yes, it's fun to own council and it's good to get your building permits and it's good to be able to shut down a street or whatever else they fund council for. But they also do not want their city to be this way. They also want to see leaders who take tough decisions and who stand up and fight back. And so these councillors who are chickens, you know what? How about you do the right thing for the people who are dying on the street and for the businesses that are dying and for the whole city that is tired and scared and afraid of all of this? Do the right thing now. And then let's see in 3 years whether or not you're rewarded for actually making the city better. My guess is that they will be. Kojo, let me go to you on the developer thing. There's a special committee now that might look at whether or not they should actually take these big developers to court. I mean, I kind of laughed out loud because this has been going on for so long. It's like, we're just going to spend money on a court case. But the fact that they're questioning whether they should follow through on the election laws, I mean, what's your take on that mess and maybe how it flows into what we've been talking about council's lack of action around homelessness?
Yeah, I mean, I won't I won't go into it. All I just want people to know is that I think when we talk about municipal campaigns, and I'm sure former Councillor Pursuta will comment, is that a large proportion of money comes from the developer industry, the real estate industry. And so this is why during the campaign, my campaign decided not to take money from the developer industry, because it's a huge conflict of interest. If you end up sitting on the planning committee and then one of the folks that donated to your campaign brings a plan forward, how do we know whether or not you are acting in the public's interest, right? In Ward 14, we have some developer families here who have projects that are going to be up and running soon, who gave money to the councillor. So tell me how you're going to make a good decision in the public's interest, right? And I think it's time for people to understand that this is what happens in Hamilton, it happens in other cities, right? And that is why people need to get involved in municipal elections, whether it's donating, whether it's volunteering, whether it's talking about these issues, so that we don't end up with inept political leaders who are not going to make actual political decisions and informed decisions that also work with community and bring people along, instead of just thinking because they are elected, they get to do whatever it is they do without any public recourse.
Robert?
Well, Laura, when I was there, and I can't recall, I got some donations from some, not developers, but consultants. Remember that we did get some donations from developers. We sent them back. My finance person, we talked about it and we sent them back. I don't remember. Most of mine were small businesses in the area, small businesses in Hamilton. In fact, even right in Hamilton, the mountain, that sent to me for my campaigns. Christmas time, for quite a few years in a row, and you're not supposed to set gifts, but it came to my door at the farm here. On the door, there'd be a bottle of wine and a Christmas card. It says, "Merry Christmas to you and your family. Thank you for being a counselor and standing up for the city." They didn't want anything. It wasn't from developers. It was from businesses. Okay. I didn't agree with that, getting those donations, because I had saw around the table, we used to have meetings before you had the lobbyist registry. We used to have meetings and I would be asked to sit with some other counselors, a couple of counselors, and have these developers come in. And I remember the one day, the one counselor had on a coat from one of these housing development companies, and he looks down at his coat. I say, okay. He looks down at his coat and he goes, "Oh shit, I got the wrong coat on today." I mean, and this was a leather jacket, and it wasn't no $100 jacket. It was like $500, $800 jacket. It was really fancy jackets. But oh shit, I got the wrong coat on today. But they were looking for stuff, and I just sat in down there. But for me, I make my decisions here on the farm. I make my decisions there. Nobody lobbies me and to get a vote from me. I don't believe in that. I never did.
So when
You're there.
go ahead.
You're there for a reason, and you listen to both sides of what's going on. You listen to the planning committee, and you make a decision based on staff reports, what they have to say, what the public has to say. But as far as giving you money underneath, and I'll go back. I'll tell you, once I had an older fellow come in. He was a developer builder. He built houses, and he just shot the shit about family stuff and all that. It was near Christmas, and he left an envelope on my table, a white envelope, as he was leaving. He slid it over onto the tape onto my desk. And he left, and I said to my assistant, I said, "Can you come?" I won't say her name, but can you come out here? Everybody knows who my assistant was. "Can you come here?" The office. She comes here, and I goes on my hand to the envelope, and she goes, "Oh my God, I've heard about it, but I've never seen it." So I said, "You open it. I'm not touching it. You open it." So she opens it. She goes, "There's money in here." I said, "You know what to do with it?" She says, "Yep, I'm going to send it right back to him." So if I knew it was, we'd have given it to him. I would have caught him on the way out the door. That was the only time it happened. But my assistant, she was there for City Hall for 25, 30 years. And she's there, "Oh my God, I've heard about it, but it's the first time I've seen it."
I had one former counselor, say to me in a lament one night at a bar, "It used to be so much easier when people would just bring the money envelopes to the front location that he had and just give it there. And it didn't have to be so complicated," right? We've heard stories of businesses that had to move their locations because the counselor at the time said to them, "It's going to cost you $50,000 to get this up to code, or it'll cost you $10,000 and I'll forget about it." I mean, right? So when we see this developer list come out and we see that they over contributed, and the mayor got a whole lot of developer money and a whole lot of money from out of the city, which is making me very concerned around where she is with the Greenbelt and the urban boundary. There's a lot of developer money right now in this current council based on the last campaign. And so, Margaret, do we bother as a city to pretend that we care when it's been corrupt for so many years? Is there really a chance that anything's going to change?
Well, there's always a chance that things are going to change, right? Like, otherwise, what would be the purpose of tomorrow? But this donor thing, I first came to this particular topic a few years ago when I was looking at the donations from the last campaign, and I was surprised at my limited knowledge of who's who in the city, how many developer families I could identify in some key wards. Now, it doesn't help us after the fact to know that all of these people have donated money to a counselor. We want to know before we make the decisions.
You mentioned Public Works, Graham, and the amount of money that they get. There's been multiple Public Works scandals, millions of dollars of contracts to families, cement being stolen. Like we have been through this for so long.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on the donations, campaign donations. I mean, number one, should the city take them to court? I mean, my quick answer is no. I don't, what I think, and I'm not the first person who will be suggesting it's already happened, is if you over contribute, you can't contribute next time.
Yeah.
Just like if you don't submit your finances as a candidate, you can't run in the next election. It's a simple rule. You either do it or you don't. There's no gray area. I think we should implement that immediately. I don't know if this committee, I don't understand what their powers are. But if not, then we need to change it. And I don't know if you can change that locally, or does it have to be changed provincially? I wish I knew, but I don't. But I think it should be that simple. For those people, all these developer types and big business types, who are now saying, well, numbers are hard. It's like, are you kidding? You over contributed. So I would say you can't donate next campaign. Number two, as someone who does give money, and it's public. My name is there, my numbers are there. I gave the maximum, so I gave as much as some of these developers did. But I don't have any businesses. I'm retired. I get nothing. There's nothing that benefits me except a better city. That's all I get. There isn't a nickel that I can get back. I'm not building anything. I'm not, expanding my house. I'm not doing anything. And I don't make phone calls to get potholes filled in front of my house, or my blue bin delivered by my counselor because it's broken. Hey, don't forget, I gave you $1,200. I don't do that sort of stuff. And I think there are plenty of people like me. And then there are others, like the ones we're talking about, that maybe, the appearance of a conflict of interest. I mean, even if we don't go as far as to say it is a conflict of interest, we absolutely can agree there is an appearance of a conflict of interest. So now how you deal with that, because I will say this, I don't want to be limited as private citizen Graham Crawford from donating to candidates who I believe in. So I don't know how you do that. If you work in the health.
I think we have the media ask counselors on every single vote they take, why did you take this vote? Why didn't you take this vote? Why did you sit in the lunchroom and not take the vote? Are you being paid not to vote for this? I mean, a little bit of accountability gets through. People can donate, sure, but it's up to the counselors to vote the right way. And if we see them constantly voting a way that is incongruous with a better city, that's where we get on them. And so on this developer thing, one last note, the famous clipboard story when Tom Jackson's front guy came to my door and I said, don't waste your time, go canvass elsewhere. And he said, oh, come on, Laura, he's a good guy. He's one of the guys who's not on the take. You got to give him that. And I remember thinking, if this is our standard, I can't even.
One last thing, though. I think it is important, though, to know who is donating. So I'll tell you something. There are some families who know that if they donate, there's going to be an appearance of a conflict. So they get their family members to donate. So if you are a candidate, and I'll say this publicly, if you're a candidate, I think you should do some research, right? I combed through all of the donations from every candidate to find out who were the developers and who were not. Because if you're going to be running for office and all of these complications are there and you don't see it, that's going to be a huge problem.
Well, I think they don't want to see it. Willful blindness, right? Because then they can't be held accountable. They can say they didn't know. One last thing, we've got only a minute left here, guys, or two. I just want to quickly go around the horn on the special mayor's powers. Your thoughts on it. We'll have a chance probably to discuss it in future, but Andrea's got them. What does it mean? And to use Kojo's language, could be good, could be bad, but it's about resisting the pull of tyranny. So Kojo, if I can just go to you first on it, and then we'll wrap up around the horn.
Yeah, I don't think she should use it. I think the strong mayor's power is something that gets people into authoritarian understanding. And again, whether they use it for something that people think is good or could be not so great for governing, it's still about the principle, right? Democracy is something that is thriving and engaging. And when you have a strong mayor's power, it thwarts at the basic idea of democracy.
Graham, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I sure do. I mean, I don't know. When you give strong mayor powers to a currently weak mayor, what happens? I don't. Nobody knows because we've never done this before. But here's an example. I commented earlier about Andrea pushing to accept the very flawed protocol, the encampment protocol. She could, I suppose, if she'd had if it's coming up again in August. Let's say that it doesn't change as much as it's supposed to. Let's say that it still treats the homeless as the problem, because this protocol did. They were going to be told where they couldn't be. They were not going to be told where they could go. So we weren't helping them. We were restricting them. We were putting more enforcement on them. That's what Andrea Horwath voted for. If with strong mayor powers, she would be able to veto the rest of council. Will she do that? I don't know. I hope not. I'm with Kojo. What I would encourage her to do is declare she's not going to use them, like a fisherman. Thanks, but no thanks. Except she won't do that because she hasn't said she hasn't said a thing negatively about Doug Ford. She just accepts everything. And she pushed us to sign that housing pledge. I watched that. She pushed us to sign that housing pledge. Now you get in line. Ted McMeekin and others, Cameron Kretsch and others spoke out against it. Even Ted, who's been around for a long time, said, don't do it. They'll use it against you. And they have. Minister Clark's already used it against us, as if we agree with the government's position. We don't. But anyway, so I would hope she would declare that she's not going to use them.
Margaret, where are you on that? Because I'm with Graham. The fact that she pushed to sign the premier's thing so the premier wouldn't be mad at us, and he's pushing to exploit the green belt and go past our urban boundary, and she didn't go to any of those anti-green belt exploitation rallies. I'm a little worried that, you know, this might be a deal that's already been signed. I'm not a conspiracist, but it's like you don't oppose the announcement to go into the green belt vocally. You don't do much, if anything. You push for us to sign off on this commitment to the premier to get you special powers. I'm a little concerned.
So Andrea's big modus operandi is collaboration, right? Collaboration, when you're collaborating with people, you're not often looking to share the spotlight or to be the spotlight. You want to bring it together. If she uses these strong mayor powers, it'll be a total betrayal of collaborative process. And that's all I have to say, is that it is a betrayal of the collaborative process. And for those people who are looking for that process to work and to come up with good solutions, it will be detrimental to that deal. However, it could be used strategically as a carrot or a stick to try and move people in different ways behind the scenes. So I often wonder what I would do, right? What would you do if it was offered to you? And I would think that I would probably want it, but keep it over there in case I really, really needed it.
If your modus operandi was collaboration, then you'd be off brand.
Want to all the tools you can get in your pocket, right? And if it's used as a tool and not as, if it's used as a carrot and not as something that she's going to hit people with, then it could be really the game changer. It could be.
Well, it still gives her more power than she was elected when she got the power, right? It's still handing her a tool that we didn't vote for. But I hear what you're saying. There's a pragmatist in you, Margaret, that is saying it could be used for good. But I think you're right on the money. She's off brand if she does.
I don't like it. I don't like the strong mayor powers. I think it's against democracy. I would not have, if she were the opposition leader at this point in time, I know that she would be speaking against them vociferously, I believe. So it's been an interesting twist into the conversation that the
I think
premiers.
the question is, who is she and what does she value? My last op-ed was, where is she? Maybe my next one has to be, who is she? Because I'm getting confused. Robert, last comment to you on the strong mayor's powers, then we'll wrap up this very heated start of summer Oshow. Robert?
Well, Laura, in the history of Hamilton itself, we've never had strong mayor powers. In the history of amalgamated Hamilton, we never had those strong mayor powers. It's no doubt it's got something to do with the present government we have, the Ontario government. And I don't think, now Mayor Andrea Horwath said she wouldn't use them. I didn't hear her on CHML yesterday. She was on the radio, I believe, at 10 to 9, missed that. But, and then once again, we still got, if she has something in her mind and makes a decision as a strong mayor using the powers, it still takes 2/3 of council can turn that down. And that's not a good signal. If she's going to be using some strong mayor power to do something and gets turned down, that's not going to be good for her in any which way. So I don't think it's needed. We have a council in place that's supposed to be working together with the mayor. I know there's some rifts in there right now, back and forth, but that's what it's about, working together to move the city forward, to do the right thing day after day. And I know we're going to get, and if I may say this, we as a panel, Laura, are going to get criticized about, the homeless thing. Well, what's our solution? Each one of us, what's our solution for that? And
I have many of them. I've done shows on it. And when people criticize me, I say, look at the interview I did with the expert on that part of it and on that part of it. I agree with them, right? So we don't have to have the solution to homelessness, and we don't even have to spend all our time writing op-eds and doing shows talking about it, but we care and we want the people with power to execute on the expert's advice. That's my answer to that bullshit, Robert.
Well, absolutely. I agree with you totally on that. And we're just trying to, we're saying what we think, how we think, and what we're seeing and what we're hearing. That's what we're doing here, right? And hopefully from what we say and what we do, some people, some politicians listen, pick up on that and say, hey, you know what? Maybe they are right on there. Maybe they've got something. Kojo's got something. Grain's got something. Margaret's got something. Laura's got something. And Pasuto, well, he's just a farmer. What does he know?
You do humility well, my friend. But I don't want them to take anything from me. I want them to take from the experts that I try to platform. And I want them to know that all of us and all the people who are in our constituencies, and we have them, are constantly wanting put pressure on them to do the right thing, to do what they campaigned on, to do what they promised, to work together, to get over these petty things. They spend an entire meeting talking about the definition of quorum when 244 other municipalities know it and accept it. They are wasting time on the petty stuff, as Graham said, and not doing the heavy lifting. So they don't need to take a damn thing from me other than to just, and I know they do, watch the Oshow and my Twitter feed and hear from the experts that I try to bring on, like all of you who are experts in your own rights, but also deeply caring citizens in this community. Thank you all so much for being here. And we'll have you back. I'm sure we're going to want to talk about the protocol when it comes out, if it comes out or whatever happens. Take care of yourselves. Happy Canada Day.